The Detroit Lions will have the opportunity to address pass rush yet again this offseason as the Cleveland Browns are releasing Ogbo Okoronkwo from their defensive line. A player that has connections with Brad Holmes, a player that has been a productive rotational piece across the NFL for the better part of a half decade, and really a player that for the Detroit Lions could make a lot of sense to bring in to bolster their pass rush, to add some quality depth for not a lot of financial support. Now, Okoronkwo is a player that has been all around the NFL, 6 seasons across the league, including 3 seasons with Los Angeles, 1 season in Houston before getting a really large contract to go over to the Cleveland Browns to help them be a three-headed monster on the pass rush. A team in Cleveland that already had Myles Garrett, already had Zadarius Smith, was looking to be one of the most formidable pass rushes in football, and they added Okoronkwo for a 3-year, $19 million contract. That deal came with $10.8 million guaranteed, and unfortunately, he never really lived up to that. Okoronkwo never had a breakout season in Cleveland, and even after the trading of Zadarius Smith a season ago, never really turned in an all-pro performance, never really turned in a performance that would make you guaranteed $10.8 million to a pass rusher, and as such, as Cleveland continues to rebuild, as Cleveland restructures a lot of their bookings, Okoronkwo was unfortunately a cap casualty, but now has the opportunity to find a new home in the later stages of the offseason. OTAs have already happened, mandatory minicamp is on the horizon, and Okoronkwo has the opportunity to join a team and pick his team before the NFL season officially gets underway. Now, Okoronkwo for a 5th-round pick has been phenomenal across the NFL. 80 games played, 132 tackles, 31 TFLs, 17 sacks, 38 quarterback hits, 4 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. He has been a really solid rotational piece across the NFL for many years. And for a player drafted in the 6th round, a player taken at 160th overall, that is a really strong and good NFL career. He got a really sizable contract to go to Cleveland, and unfortunately that contract didn't work out for Cleveland, and unfortunately didn't work out for Okoronkwo, but now he has the opportunity to go somewhere and continue to be that really reliable rotational pass rusher. Now, early in his career, Okoronkwo didn't see a lot of playing time. First 3 seasons in Los Angeles, he played less than 28% of snaps a season. He played in case of injury, he played on 3rd down rotations, he was a very specialized and very seldomly utilized player across the NFL, right? He was a guy that everybody looked at and said, okay, I'll get you 1 to 2 sacks a season, he can be a 3rd down pass rushing specialist, but realistically, he's not going to do a whole lot, which is why he was released by the Rams at the end of the 2022 season. In 2022, he signed with the Houston Texans, where he played really well. He played in a more expanded role, playing 44% of defensive snaps, nearly double of what his career high was with the Los Angeles Rams, and he put up career high numbers. He put up 5 sacks, he had 7 tackles for loss, and was really an underrated player across the league in the 2022 season. Going into 2023, he signed a big contract in Cleveland and played 55% of snaps in 23 and then 52% of snaps in 2024. It was the first time in his NFL career he had ever played more than half the defensive snaps for a defensive line or for a football team professionally, and he did okay. He had 4.5 sacks in 2023, had 3.5 sacks in 2024, and even with the expanded role, he certainly took a step forward from where he was in Los Angeles, but never really took that step into stardom, never really took that step into full-time starting pass rusher, every single down type of player. And at this point, that is what he is throughout his career. In 2024, in maybe the most expanded role that he has seen across the league, he played in 465 snaps, totaled 16 games and 5 starts for Cleveland, with 3 sacks and 5 tackles for loss to show for it. Not a bad season at all, and certainly not a bad season for a player that began the year as the 3rd pass rushing option for Cleveland. He got an extended role once Zadarius Smith was traded away and didn't really do a whole lot with it. Had 2 of his 3 sacks after Zadarius Smith was traded, but again, never really took that massive step forward into being a star or even a starter for a team like Cleveland. Now, how does this fit with the Detroit Lions? Because yes, he is a good pass rusher, and yes, he is a pass rushing specialist, but why specifically would he fit with the Detroit Lions? Well, a lot of fans are pointing to the fact that Brad Holmes was on that Los Angeles Rams team when they drafted Okoronkwo in the 5th round. 2019, with the 160th overall pick, they selected Okoronkwo out of the University of Oklahoma. It was a player that was supposed to be a pass rushing specialist, a player that was supposed to contribute on special teams, and really wasn't supposed to be a whole lot in the NFL. He's a little bit small to be an edge rusher, a little bit heavy to be an outside linebacker, really played that in-between type of role, and didn't carve out a whole lot with Los Angeles. But obviously, there was enough to put on tape that Brad Holmes felt comfortable spending the 160th overall pick on him. As we know from Brad Holmes, he doesn't just take a pick to waste it, right? He doesn't just take flyers. He doesn't just take guys that, oh, whatever, they'll be camp bodies. If Brad Holmes selects you, especially in the 5th round of the NFL draft, there is a reason for it. He sees some type of potential and some type of future, which is why a lot of Lions fans are looking at Okoronkwo as a potential late offseason free agent addition. Now, looking at the Detroit Lions pass rush as of today, Aidan Hutchinson is phenomenal. Marcus Davenport is very good when he is healthy. Al-Quadin Muhammad had a great season a year ago. Josh Paschal's okay, a really good run defender, not the greatest pass rusher. And then you're relying on undrafted guys, right? Nate Lynn was undrafted a season ago. Isaac Ukwu was undrafted a season ago. Mitchell Agude was undrafted 2 seasons ago at this point. And there is a lot of unproven depth on this roster. To add a player like Okoronkwo, you would have a star in Aidan Hutchinson, a star when healthy in Marcus Davenport, a reliable player and depth position guy in Muhammad and Paschal, and then you could add a third player to that list in Okoronkwo. The issue is, I'm not sure he totally fits with what the Detroit Lions are going for. The cons of this move would be he's not a Detroit Lions pass rusher. He is not a Detroit Lions defensive end, right? He may fit at linebacker. He profiles much more similarly to Derek Barnes from a size perspective, but that's not what they're drafting him or signing him to do. That's not why they would bring him in. They would bring him in to be a pass rusher, to pass rush off the defensive line, and that's not really the position they want to put a player in who's 6'1", 235, 240 pounds. He's not big enough to be a defensive end in Detroit. He's more of an outside linebacker type. And I think the question really is he an upgrade over what the Detroit Lions have in depth? Because he's not an upgrade over Aidan Hutchinson. He's not going to start over Marcus Davenport when he's healthy. He's not really going to play a whole lot over Al-Quadin Muhammad. They're very similar players, but Muhammad's a little bigger, a little bendier, and a little more productive over the last few seasons. Josh Paschal is a significantly better run defender while being bigger, and by the time you get to edge rusher 5, by the time you get to edge rusher 6, yeah, at that point that would be an upgrade, but how much are you willing to spend on an upgrade that very likely could not see the field at any point throughout his tenure in Detroit? The pros of this move would be, yeah, it adds pass rushing depth. Regardless of how far down you are, pass rushing depth is pass rushing depth, right? The Detroit Lions a season ago were playing their defensive tackles 6 and 7. They were signing players in the linebacking core on Monday and having them play on Thursday Night Football. They had 4, 5, 6, 7 edge rushers throughout the season pass rushing the quarterback, and that is a big concern for them. They are very worried this season. You can tell from the signings and the way they drafted. They are incredibly concerned about having those depth issues yet again. So Okoronkwo could be a really good addition to just bolster the bottom of this roster, much like Roy Lopez has done, much like, Avonte Maddox has done, much like Rocky Sin has done this offseason, and several of the other signings, Grant Stewart in the offseason. Those players bolster the bottom of the roster so we don't see what happened a year ago happen again. He's a healthy contributor. Brad Holmes drafted him, so he likes him. He contributes 3 to 5 sacks per season, and at this point in the offseason, he's going to be cheap value. While the Darius Smith and Jadeveon Clowney and Matt Judon are probably still asking for upwards of $8, $10, even $12 million a season, the Lions could probably sign Okoronkwo for $3, maybe $4 million at its peak, and that is significantly better value for what you're getting versus what you're paying. And that, as we know for the Detroit Lions, is a big deciding factor. Now, in my opinion, I don't necessarily believe this move will get done. It is an interesting player. It is an interesting position for the Detroit Lions to be in, but we know that they don't like the small guys. They don't take smaller players if they don't have to on the defensive line, and I don't think they need it. Their defensive line is pretty good. Their edge rushers, as we talked about, Aidan Hutchinson is going to be fine. Marcus Davenport, they believe, can stay healthy. They like Josh Paschal to defend the run. They like Al-Quadin Muhammad to rush the passer. They like Levi Onwuzurike as kind of an in-between guy. Same thing goes for Mekhi Wingo. On the interior, they like Tyleik Williams. They like DJ Reader. They're excited to get Aleem McNeil back. Even going forward, they have Roy Lopez in that line. They have so many players already fighting for time and fighting for reps on the defensive line. And I truly don't think Brad Holmes views it as a need. I don't think that Brad Holmes or the Detroit Lions are sitting there saying, God, we need a pass rusher. Because if they did, they would have signed somebody. They would have signed Jadeveon Clowney. They would have folded to Zadarius Smith. They would have signed Matt Judon, but they haven't because they don't view it as a massive need for the Detroit Lions defensive line. And I don't think you should either. We've talked about it many times on this channel. I think pass rush will be okay, especially with Aidan Hutchinson returning, especially if Marcus Davenport is healthy, especially with better linebacking core behind them and a better, deeper secondary behind them. The pass rush will be okay. The pass rush and the defensive line is not as big a weakness as many people would have you believe. I think that's why the Detroit Lions have been so patient. Could they add a player? Absolutely. Would it help with depth? 100%. But I don't think it's a move that's necessary for the Detroit Lions. And that is where I think the biggest question mark lies in whether or not they will address it at some point this year. So with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Let me know down in the comments below if you would sign Ogbo Okoronkwo or whether you'd let him sit in free agency and rock with who the Detroit Lions have now. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions in the comments down below. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.